The patrol walks like all the way up, so you gotta wait for it to go for these. These mobs on the side, the Star Scryers do a mind control. This dude with the sword and the hammer and shield does a cleanse. So while we're crowd controlling, they can cleanse. So we want to make sure that the sheeps and the fears are like up here and everything else is down here behind the wall, so that they're out of loss. What else do we have? Astromancer looks like a mage, just AoEs people. These dudes, they whirlwind, like everything does AoE damage. This thing's basically a prop paladin and he's annoying, but the danger is the Star Scryers with their mind control. So they either die first or they get crowd controlled. And it's just, these trash is very annoying. People are going to die a lot, and it's just about making sure that you have stuff controlled as much as possible. Like if you need your mages to just sit there and spam sheep and do nothing else, then that is fine. More of these. These dudes, it's kind of the same principle. People do whirlwind. There's probably mobs that Hammer of Justice, and you just cleanse that. In here we've got these 2 packs with the little birds and the dudes on fire. Going to pull them into the room. So you have your pally tank kind of standing here, drop a consecrate, pick up all the little birds. Misdirect, pull the other 2 like down into the next corner. Kill those. Then you go for the AoE. The little bird spam silence. So your pally tanker is going to struggle to get threat, which is why you kill the two individual mobs first. And why you kind of pull through the consecrate to get to there, so the pally at least has a chance to pick them up. So that's those 2. Then we have these 4 birds around the side. They do a like AoE mana drainer, and they just charge and knock back. So you pick a place where the entire raid can just stack against a wall. So you do like all the way down here with the bird outside, or like in this corner here. You just like stack the entire raid up. I think hunters can just about go minimum range distance and be fine shooting, but anyway, you clear out the entire room and then it is Allah. So there are 6 platforms. So we have platforms 0 through to 5, and yes, there's a reason I'm doing them that way and not 1 through 6. Just these 3 and then the other side. I guess I can mark them. So I'm not 100% sure how it's actually going to happen, because PTR stuff changed back and forwards. The latest one I saw suggested that when she's not doing flame coils, it's plus or minus 1 on platform movement. So the boss is always going to start at Skull. So your main tank is going to start here. And every 30 seconds, the boss can move, and she'll either fly up to the middle of the room and do AoE, at which point everyone has to jump down onto the platform, and you just wait out the AoE. As the tanks, you can run like maybe a third of the way up the ramp in preparation for the next phase. After the flame coils, the boss will either run to platform 1, which is Skull, or platform 4, which is the Moon. So the druid tank, or possibly your second warrior if they are tanking, you end up with one of the tanks and a healer in case the boss goes there, running to the other side. So you have one tank, your main tank, like waiting here, and have a healer waiting underneath, and the druid and a healer exactly the opposite side of the room, until you know which way the boss is running. The other way the boss can move is, again, as far as I know, either plus or minus 1. So if she's starting at 1, she can either move to 0, which is the purple diamond, or plus 1, as in to 2, which is the X. So ideally you have a tank waiting at each platform. I heard people say that she could also move directly opposite. If we find out if that's true, that will complicate things, but if that's the case, we just get an extra tank, even if they're not tank spec'd. Swiftness potions are also actually very good in this fight. Intercept or Feral Charge are absolute lifesavers. There's ads that the pally tank will be dealing with, so if you're one of the main tanks, Ads will spawn sometimes near you. You just ignore them. You let them get healer aggro and run away from you. The boss is tauntable. Ranged cannot pull aggro, but melee can, which is why you need to taunt every time you pick up the boss. If you don't taunt, the boss will be attacking you, but you won't be high on threat because you'll have done nothing all fight, and the melee can be way above you. So then the melee run into range, they get killed. So you have to taunt, and if you taunt resists, call it out. You shouldn't use AoE taunt in phase 1 because you might need it in phase 2. So if you taunt resist, just call it out. The melee have to wait until you actually land something. Yeah, so just make sure that you're aware of where the boss can move. Make sure you're aware of where you have to go. If you look like you're going to be late, if you're like the tank who's meant to pick the boss up at the next platform, wherever the next platform is, and you're going to be late, call it out. If a priest is a absolute god, they can use Shadow Fiend to save the fight by having something in melee range. I'm not memeing about this either. Shadow Fiend is amazing on this fight because you spawn something in melee range. And if there's nothing in melee range, the boss just starts AoEing. So that's why I'm talking about swiftness pots. That's why I'm talking about intercept. Shadow Fiends, it's all about getting something into melee range ASAP. So that's phase 1. It's just about seeing where the boss is going to move and having someone either already there. Again, also making sure that you have a healer available to be there, or if you don't have someone there, for example, if you're at Skull and the boss starts moving towards X and you're the tank and you're the only one who can get there, you can just swiftness pot, you run along, you charge, the boss will get like 2 or 3 flame buffets out, which is a lot of damage, but it's not going to kill anyone outright. So it's manageable if you can do things properly. The other thing to watch out for as a tank is you want to be very close to the edge so that you're in healing loss of the healers down in the platform below you. If you're like here, you can't be healed and you will die. Phase 2 is all done in the middle of the platform. There's no like specific positioning. The boss will spawn in the center, which does an AoE knockback, so you want to be kind of like this kind of distance away from the center, and you should be fine, and you can run in, taunt, pick it up. Aggro will probably carry over from phase 1, but the boss is tauntable the entire way through the fight, so you can taunt the boss whenever. If another tank has higher threat than you and you want to be the tank picking him up, call it up out in advance if you want your main tank to begin, for example. Just make sure the healers know who is going to be tanking. The boss does a minus armor debuff, which it's like 80% armor reduction, so other tanks will need to taunt ASAP when that happens. If you have Moreau's Pocket Watch equipped, the moment you see the armor buff go up, hit that. Likewise with like Last Stand, also hit it straight away. And this is why you need the AoE taunt available. And don't waste it in phase 1. If you have a taunt resist, like if your co-tank has no armor and they're crying out for a taunt, and your taunt resists, you AoE taunt so that they can actually stay alive. And you communicate what taunts are going out, what taunts are failing. Any questions on that?
What are we doing with the ad?
The ads, you just leave them for the pally tank. Every single ad gets left for the pally tank. They might be killed. We might just leave them and get the pally to tank all the ads the entire fight long. That kind of depends. It's got to be a play it by ear factor. So for the pally tank, you just spend the entire fight at the bottom. Ads will eventually come down because of healing aggro. You pick them up. Ads will spawn in phase 2. Yeah, that's the other thing for phase 2 is she'll fly up in the air and do either it's a meteor or it's a dive bomb. If it's a meteor, we have to stack. If it's a dive bomb, we have to spread. We're going to start off assuming it's the dive bomb. We're going to spread. And if someone just gets one shot by like 3000% overkill, then we know it's the meteor. The place where she lands, she's going to spawn in that location, again, doing the AoE knockback. So as a tank, you want to be like 25 yards away. Especially as a pally tank, you want to be, if the boss is landing on you, if we're stacking, then you drop a consecrate and you just instantly run away. Try and pick up the ads. If you can't pick them up yourself, call for misdirects. The ads explode when they are killed, which is why it's not just a guaranteed, yeah, you just hit them whenever. So you can't kill them anytime the raid is stacking up. The only person who will need any form of fire resist on this fight is the pally tank, and that's only if you're worried about the ads exploding and dealing a lot of damage. Personally, I'm going to use like 2 or 3 pieces. I'm not going to use a ton, at least for the first try, and see how it goes from there. So yeah, for the warriors and druid tanks, it's just about seeing where the boss is moving as early as possible in phase 1 and making sure that you're in the right place. When the flame quills happen, when the boss goes up into the sky, make sure you know which side you're meant to be running. You're able to pick up the boss ASAP when the boss goes there. And also, like, if the flame quills happen and the boss starts running towards moon, so platform 4, and you're the warrior tank and you're positioned ready for platform 1, you'll run up to platform 1 and you just run the entire way along until you get to the square. Like, you'll spend the entire 30 seconds just running the entire way around the fight, so that you can be at this platform ready to pick the boss up if the boss moves here. And then the boss might do flame quills again and you have to run all the way back around to the ramp. Like, there's a lot of just running about on the fight. So movement speed in Chon is essential. And yeah, strategic use of dash and swiftness potions helps a lot. That is a lot. These robots, one of the robots has a Crystal Core Sentinel. Or Crystal. One of them has a spell, is anything that they've got called Overcharge, you spell reflect. And if you can't spell reflect, you might even need to Nightmare Seed. Or, like, stuff hits hard. If the cast time is long enough and you're druid tanking these, obviously you can't spell reflect. If the cast time is long enough, Bart Skin, go back into bear form. It's actually going to help. The patrol, you wait for it to be on a good place, you pull it like into the side. These dudes, these Tempest Smith, they throw bombs. They should throw bombs. There we go, bombs. You just like use sheep pull these if you can, or you get your mages to just pom sheep. These mechanics, these demon things, you banish because they throw like this saw blade thing, which is a cone AoE attack. So you banish them. You make sure, if possible, you have them faced away. Got to clear the whole room. Strash is easy. It's just kind of annoying, making sure that you have stuff properly controlled. As for the boss, this is the biggest cheese fest ever imagined. So since we usually have 3 hunters, yes, this fight is just about hunters doing stuff properly. So, from like square to X, this is zone 1. From X to moon, this is zone 2. From moon to triangle, this is zone 3. Imagine like a big slice of the circle that is the room. Boss is going to be in the middle. 22 people in the raid are going to be stacked in melee range. Going to have hunters at like max range shooting. Be like here. The boss will shoot an orb at you. You just run across to the next side. Keep shooting. The boss will shoot an orb at you. You run across to the other side. I've seen this done where you have 2 hunters and they just stand at opposite sides on this ring with a cheater on and literally just do laps around the room, and that's all they do all fight. Splitting the room into 3 sections and getting you to just like dance back and forwards lets you do some damage. It's the better way of doing it for you guys. You need at least 2 people at range to soak these orbs, otherwise the boss just throws them at melee, and the goal is to just not take damage. For everyone else, the boss is basically Broodlord Lashlayer from Blackwing Lair, except without the Mortal Strike. Boss will occasionally do a knockback, that's a threat reduction, so all the tanks fight for threat. And the boss does this thing called pounding. Yeah, that's the knockback, that's a threat reduction, so next tank might need to pick it up. It's taunt immune, so you just push for threat. This thing called pounding, AoE damage on the raid. 22 people are going to sit in there and deliberately take AoE damage. And you just out-heal it. You just brute force the fight. Yeah, you see that big orb that shot at Makor? That's the reason that you want everyone stacked, because those things are even more annoying.
Like, it's only a half reset on the knockback, right? Something like that.
Yeah, like it's not a complete threat wipe. It's a threat reduction. The reality, I think, is that the boss is occasionally just going to bounce between the warrior and the druid tank, and the pally will be lucky to tank the boss even once. But you're still going to use 3 tanks. You're still going to have everyone push for threat. You get your misdirects onto anyone who is not currently the main tank. And the threat reduction thing, I believe, can be avoided. So, you know, you can just straight up dodge it. So again, Moreau's Trinket has some use. You can, if you have it when you pop it while you're tanking, it might mean that you tank the boss for longer. I can't confirm it, and obviously it's RNG.
Yeah, I'll definitely try.
But you might just want threat trinkets. These big packs, they're kind of annoying. There's a couple of specific mobs that as the squires, you'll get your warrior and druid to tank, and pally will tank everything else. You want the raid to max range everything else, because they all do apparently nothing. Yeah, you see these like spells, you barely see them casting them, but there's a lot of like AoE damage going on these packs. So it's just making sure that you pull them properly and have your pally actually able to pick them up, but have everyone else able to max range. Same deal in the room. There's a patrol or 2. These packs, it looks like there's 2 packs on the sides, like on this side. The patrol is one group, the other lot are all one pull. So if I pull these, the whole lot come. So you want to have position so that like all the ads run over consecrate. Solarian, I don't know which way around we're going to do tanks on this. There's advantages to having the paladin be the air quote main tank, and there's advantages to having either the warrior or the druid. The paladin is going to struggle to get aggro on the boss for phase 3. The warrior and the druid obviously can't do ad tanking, and it's basically a 1 tank fight. You can get around the lack of an ad tank with improved blizzard. So I don't know how we're going to do it. I need to talk to other people, but basically that you tank the boss in the middle. I say tank. The boss just spams arcane missiles on random people. The only reason to tank her is to build threat for phase 3. The entire rest of the raid are going to stack. There's 2 different ways of doing this fight. The way that I want to do it is the user-friendly tactic that is also absolutely awful for tanks. So most of the raid is going to be standing here on the square. We're going to have 2 tanks in full arcane resist gear standing here. When people in the raid get a debuff, it's a dot thing. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. There's an extra debuff. They run over. It passes on to the closest person when it times out. So you have your 2 tanks here and your 3rd person along the line. I can mark these all entirely actually. So like you have your 2 tanks on X and Moon, and person runs to Skull. And these 2 tanks, you basically swap positions depending on who has the fewer stacks of whichever debuff it is that reduces your arcane resistance or increases the damage you take. So basically you'll stand here and someone will pass a debuff, and then you'll swap places. And then you wait for the next person to drop a debuff, and then you'll swap places. And that's what you do for the entire fight. And I'm sorry, but it's that, or have the entire raid have to learn how to position and when to move forwards and when to move backwards. And this way is kind of fail-safe. Or more fail-safe. That's phase 1. Phase 2, the boss teleports away. The entire raid, again, except for the 2 tanks, groups up. Ad spawn, you kill them. There's 2 big ads, a whole load of small ads. Nothing's really much of a threat. You just have to make sure that you kill them and kite them. And the big ads, you can stun them. You can have your DPS warrior and rep paladin like taunt them because they don't really do anything. Phase 3, when she gets to 20%, she turns into a Void Walker, and it's tank and spank. She fears. Hey, look, it's a Warlock Trinket. She fears, so you have field on the tank. You might even just be able to kite her around in a circle. It depends how quick she moves. But once you get her to 20%, you've won, basically. It's free. So that's Solarian. It's a weird fight, especially in terms of tanking. It's just like there's not really much to tank. So, since we've been here for an hour, I don't want to go through the... I don't know if it's worth actually killing KT just to go through... Fuck it, I should.
Can you do it solo?
I'm sure you can, it's just like the RP makes it take a long time. And I don't want to keep people around for too long.
I thought there's a weapon you can't equip. You can't break a shield or something.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I can just one-shot him at this point, at this level. And stuff just does no damage. Anyway, phase 1, there's 4 ads individually. This guy first, if you're not a tank, you can't go in melee range. You can't go within like 15 yards. He just picks a target and he randomly chases them for a bit. You see he moves slowly, you just outrun him. We want him to die somewhere down here. This is kind of marked on the raid sheet if anyone wants that as a visual guide. Now he's targeting Makor, who is locked out the room. Yeah, like he does this knockback and stuff if you get too close. So you want him to die down here so that when you're in phase 2, you have room to react and room to kite. Sanguinar, he does an AoE fear. Beyond that, tank and spank. There you go, see fear. Probably going to get the druid to tank him, because he's like one of the last ones to die in phase 3 and 4. 3 even. No, yeah, sorry. In phase 3, so you want your warrior free, which is why the druid's tanking him, even though he's a fear mob. This mob's tanked by a warlock. The warlock's going to be off to the side. She does a conflagrate, which hits someone who is in closer range, and you want someone in closer range. So in phase 1, tanks, you can just like stand around close range. She does conflagrate. You don't want the warlock having this, because then the boss runs off. Phase 3, it's going to be Shadow Priest, because the tanks are all going to be busy. You want her to die where she spawns. She should never ever move.
Well done.
And that Alkane explosion is why you can't go into melee range. Last dude, tanked by the paladin. He is a weird engineer hunter thing. He throws bombs. You can just dodge. You can straight up dodge them. Phase 2, at spawn, the Axe Devastation has to be tanked slightly out because it will AoE us as while we're AoEing it, so the melee can't be near it. So the Ad's going to be tanked by probably the Druid. You just want it slightly out the raid so it's not cleaving us. Cosmic Infuser, the Mace is the healing weapon. That is killed first, so the warriors on that, just for aggro. Hunters are dealing with the bow. Everything else is tanked by the Paladin. So, you know, you might have a misdirect assigned to something, but then just consecrate, wait for stuff to have aggro. Group them up, kill them, loot your weapons. Yeah, all of these. And you loot them, they have equip effects, so like the staff has a thing where you use it, it gives you the buff. We've got to get people to macro in for on use for the staff. The shield for the tanks, if you're a warrior, obviously you can get the weapon. It's just more threat. It's a weapon it's a sword that hits hard. That's it. You can use it. You don't have to use it. The main thing is the shield. It has an on use which gives you a massive damage absorption shield, and it has a cooldown. So in phase 4, when the boss is casting Pyroblast on you, you use the shield to absorb that.
Perhaps I underestimated you.
And then, like, if you need to absorb a second one in a row, then you can shield wall the second one. But that should never happen. Phase 3, we have all 4 adds. These two here, the Engineer and Sanguinar, should be grouped up into this corner, so you can just, like, tank and spank those. Capernian should be tanked where she was up. Like, a Warlock and a Shadow Priest would deal with those. All of the range will be dealing with Thaladred first. He's the one who fixates on people and charges. And, like, everything else happens afterwards. The boss will spawn, warrior tank will make sure you're there to pick up the druids. Once you're free, you're picking up phoenixes. Apparently they explode when they die, they spawn the eggs, but you've got to kill the eggs. Boss does a mind control. with this one, you can break it by stabbing your friend with the legendary dagger. So hunters and like rogues pick up the dagger, equip it in your offhand. Someone gets mind controlled, you just auto attack them. It breaks them. This like disorient effect will be immune by the staff having a buff. It's like all of these weapons have really helpful effects. We'll just have to make sure people are using them. Tank and spank for the most part. Get your druid kiting the eggs around when the boss gets to, I want to say 25%, 50%, 50% sounds right. As phase, Pyroblast. It's got a damage absorb effect and spams 3 Pyroblasts in a row. So you'd shield the first one, you should be able to kick the second one. If you can't, then you can shield wall it. Then there's this long ass RP thing, and then you get to phase 5. So one thing to note in phase 4, the phase we just finished, is that we have to kill the eggs, otherwise they spawn a new phoenix each time. So when you're kiting them, make sure that they die in like easy DPS swap distance. They slowly kill them. The phoenix slowly kills itself. It does AoE around, so you have to try and kite it. But yeah, you want to make sure it dies within distance for people to be able to swap to the eggs and kill them ASAP. In phase 5, we'll kill probably either 0 or 1 phoenix egg, and we'll just start kiting each of the phoenixes as they spawn. There'll be more and more and more, and we just ignore them and nuke the boss. He stops doing the mind control in this phase, at least I think he does. The one thing of note, 2 things of note. One is the weird floaty air phase, which I should be flying. See these small black clouds around the boss? If you get close to them, you get a debuff which reduces your total health, and it stacks. So, especially as a tank, don't ever be hit by those, because that fucks you up. It doesn't fuck you up in the short term, it fucks you up in the long term. Beyond that, you just spread, you float around, you make sure that you don't die from full damage when this phase ends. Yeah, and then it's mostly tank and spank. The big issue, though, for this phase is, again, on the PTR, and I don't know if this is going to carry over. When the boss went from phase 4 into phase 5, the tank lost threat. The current target lost threat, and everyone else kept their threat. So you need a secondary tank, you know, pushing second on threat to pick them up, and I need to double check if the boss does Pyroblast in phase 5. But the reason I'm getting the druid to tank the abs is because the paladin can equip the shield. So if your second tank ever has to soak a Pyroblast, they can, whereas the druid can't because they physically cannot equip a shield.
Does the spell reflector work?
What do you mean the spell reflector?
The fire one.
Doesn't it have a physical chance against high level stuff?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay, yeah, Pyroblast is only phase 4, or at least it should only be phase 4, so might swap the Paladin and Druid around. Paladin will have an easier time kiting ads, the Druid will have a much easier time chasing threat. Either way, just be prepared for either. And like if you're free, you obviously push for threat on the boss. It's a complicated fight. It's a fucking long fight. There's a lot of mechanics, but a lot of it's broken down into just like, here's the one thing I have to be doing in this phase. Here's the one thing I have to be doing in the next phase. It's just different people need to know their different things. So does anyone have questions about TK or back to SSC? If there's any more SSC questions, do them after. But anything about TK, anything about Kel'Thas, anything at all to add?
Let's kill this shit.
Hell yeah.